I'm Ben Bies.
And I'm Carly Bies. We've been married for 12 years and together for 15 and have 2 boys.
This is our story of a controlling church and spiritual abuse and how it shook our relationship and clouded our view of God.
Our desire is that our honest view of pain and trauma in relationships can provide hope and the courage to hold on when life does not turn out as planned,
while also providing a dash of humor and loving banter.
We are still working to find wholeness, and we welcome you on our journey. Hello, friends, and welcome back. Happy Thursday or Friday or Saturday, Sunday, whenever you're listening.
Could be any day.
It could be any day. So I guess we'll just kind of jump right in. We are back from New York and just time of our lives. We had mentioned at the end of last week's episode that a pretty big couple at our church, an associate pastor and his wife and family, had decided to leave
Not to
our
mention
church.
they're basically the only people that had real jobs and were funding everything in the church.
Right. Right.
I don't know if we mentioned that last week, but
I think you mentioned something like that, but pretty big deal. And that was really like groundbreaking, earth-shattering, because I remember feeling like for the first time, like at this point, I was aware enough to like really want God to like do something. Like, God, I know something needs to happen here, but I don't know what that is. It definitely, like in my mind, it definitely wasn't like we need to leave or this church needs to end or anything like that. It just was like, God, please just change the tides, like just help people just be better people and just like guide us, like please do something. We were so desperate at this point for just something to change. And this family leaving was, I remember feeling so much excitement, like in my spirit, like, oh my gosh, like God is doing something. I feel like God is going to be doing something, like so sure. I felt that. And this was before Christmas of 2009.
Yeah. And we had gotten back from New York, and then Christmas time was coming up, and our pastor at the time, again, was becoming more and more distant, even in the business. And we're trying to run a business where he has to have the final say in everything. That's what you got to understand. Like everything that went out, he had to have the final say in. So,
even if he had no part in it.
Yeah, even if there's a project that was done that I could send out, I would have to wait for his final approval. And as he was becoming more and more distant, it'd be, could be a day or two. And I'm trying to run a business, and I'm like, this is not sustainable. We can't be like this, and then also paying your bills and everything else without us being paid, and drinking manwich sauce, and it was just it was a really hard situation we were in, and we came back from New York with all these bills due, and did the best we could with them, but
it was kind of like, did anything get done while you were gone?
Yeah,
but and not like you were putting blame on anybody else, but it was like, yeah, it just was like you were in charge of so many things.
Yeah, and he, for some reason, he would listen to me more than other people at certain times. I don't know what the situation was with that, but I could sometimes get him to do some things work-wise that I don't know, I had a level head. I could maybe talk sense into him a little more than other people, but not a lot more. And
so you being gone for a week in New York was...
it's harder, and then he became more detached, and then we're coming on Christmas, and Carly's grandmother was getting really sick, and our pastor was going to go on a cruise of some sort with his family members, and he was going to be gone for like 10 days, and Carly's entire family was going to go out to see her grandmother in Minnesota, and we felt like it was just something very important for us to do because she was such an incredible woman in Carly's life and so supportive of us, even in the midst of our junk. She was just an incredible woman, And he was leaving anyway, so we thought, you know what? Well, might as well go. And we'd just gotten back from New York a month before, and
we
it
had
was
never
like
really traveled. I mean, we had gone to Denver for a little bit,
maybe
over
like
Christmas,
2 or 3 days. Yeah,
but we weren't ever gone for Christmas. I mean, my family's
Never.
local, so we were able to do Christmas with them, and we would spend some time in Denver. But we weren't able to do any long trips or time away, and when we were away, you were still having to do
Yeah.
work and always had to have your phone on you. It was never really being away.
no,
So yeah, being able to go to Minnesota was like, it felt like we were the furthest from LA we could be.
well, besides New York, which we were in a month and a half early.
Right, but like it was just
Yeah,
the
as far
distance-
as
the
atmosphere
distance
and
was so
weather and
yeah, the distance was so tangible in terms of like it felt so far away when we were in Minnesota. And like it almost felt like we were detached from our life in LA. And I don't think we had ever felt that before. I think maybe New York was the start of that
sort of, but
feeling.
there was still so much business stuff going on
And so
there.
much fear, but I think going into Christmas, knowing that this couple was leaving, it gave us a sense of hope and just kind of like, I don't know what's going to happen, but we are going to enjoy this Christmas.
Yeah.
And it was the most magical trip.
It
I
was
mean,
magic.
it was so magical. I mean, it was my grandma. My grandma was, super, super sick with lymphoma, and I think she was doing pretty well at this point. But I think we all kind of knew this was going to be her last Christmas, and we were there with my aunts and uncles and cousins, and all got to stay in my aunt's house out there, and like the weather was just
Snowed the whole
time. And on Christmas morning, a horse-drawn carriage was outside in front taking people on rides around the neighborhood.
In the neighborhood, yeah.
On Christmas morning, snowing. I mean, it was
We made the most humongous snowman and then rode on a horse-drawn carriage on
I
Christmas morning while it snowed.
We were in a freaking Hallmark Christmas movie, and I was loving every second of it. It was so magical, and I mean, oh my goodness, so many fun things about that trip.
Yeah.
Just
we watched
going
Home Alone together at night. Like, we never watched movies. We never spent that
Yeah.
much. Again, it was like the New York trip. We never spent so much time together. And with your family especially. I had never been around your family for that long. Like, not even
Right.
close.
Yeah, and to be, like, I mean, just like my aunt had, like, lavender essential oils on the sheets, and even just, like, that smell is just reminds me so much of that time. And going into town, like, they lived in Northfield at the time, and, like, Northfield's just, like, the most amazing town.
Beer
the cutest
cheese,
little town.
soup,
Go into
and-
town, get, like, hoagies and beer cheese soup, and just so many wonderful memories of that trip. We had never been. I had been to Minnesota before, but never in the winter like that. And it just was like everything we needed at that time. Time with family, and because he was going on like an international cruise. I think he was going like to Mexico or something.
Yeah.
Supposed to be going. And so I don't even think you got a phone call from him the entire time.
No, this was at the point where he turned into full victim mode.
Yes.
Full victim, licking my wounds. I can't believe people would leave my church. I'm the most loving and giving person. I can't believe people are perceiving me in a bad light. I can't even go on like this. This is so unbelievable. I'm just so hurt and so wretched, and my life is so horrible.
The couple that decided to leave, I don't think they weren't very like outspoken about why they were leaving,
didn't say
other
a
than
word
the
about
fact
it.
that like they just couldn't do it anymore. And that
Yeah.
was so like respected by all of us that were there at that point. We were
Yeah.
like, yeah, man, good for you. I'm glad you got the balls to like leave, because we don't at this point. Sorry, Mom, for saying balls. But yeah, I remember before Christmas time, there was a church service that he happened to be at. It was a Sunday morning. Our pastor was there, and this family had been leaving at this point, and I think they were still at the church, but they were like They were going to be gone by Christmas.
Yeah, it was basically they gave their 2 weeks notice to a church. Like,
Yeah.
who needs that? But, okay.
Yeah.
You're a fake elder,
As
so.
if 2 weeks was enough. And this is where we did my major Jezebel moment of, we had mentioned in a previous episode of, he was kind of like, pouty face, pout fish face. And he kind of was like, oh, good morning, how are you, whatever, after service. And it's like, oh, good, how are you? And he's like, oh, just such the victim. Like, just totally the victim was like, oh, I'm doing okay. And just, like, so obviously trying to be the victim. And I was just so not having it.
Yeah.
It's like, really? Like, really? Like, is it really hard for you? I'm sorry. That sounds hard. That sounds tough. And that was the first time I was really, like, outspoken towards him about, I just had enough at that point, But,
And we also had, I don't know if you remember this, but we had a church meeting right before we left for Christmas. There was a church meeting on a Wednesday night. It was called Last Second. And we barely made it, and then our best friends weren't invited, and we told them about it, and they decided they needed to come too. And it was basically him coming, acting like a victim, saying, yeah, these people are leaving, and we just need to...
Oh my gosh,
and
I thought this was afterwards.
No. This was right before Christmas, because our friends were leaving for their Christmas vacation.
Oh my gosh,
and here's the crazy
that's
thing about
right.
it, is he comes... He's wearing 2 different shoes. And he looks down and he goes, oh, my life is so hard. I can't even get the same shoes on. Like, this is how bad my life is. I'm so messed up that I can't even look to see if I have... And I just thought...
That's right. That whole meeting, it was like our whole church was... Our whole church was like in a relationship. So if one person left, it was like we had to have like a DTR to like figure out how are we all going to move on with this couple leaving. So it was causing so much like strife, and I think people were kind of feeling like, oh my gosh, what's happening?
Yeah.
Like, ooh. But he called that, I totally forgot about that. He called that meeting, and it was like late one night, and we were, and
our friends were leaving. They were on the road, and they drove back an hour because they were like, I have to be there. Because they were more fed up than we were.
Yeah.
I have to be there for this.
Yeah,
And we were
he was
leaving, I think, the next day.
Yeah, so we were able to be there. And I remember just like staring straight forward at the church, like as he was like walking by on our side. And I'm like, I will not even look him in the eye. I will not even look him in the eye. And I remember there were...
This is one of the few times, no, a couple times, but this for sure was one where I thought, oh God, please don't say a word to Carly. I just, like, there was such a fear in my heart that I said, that I just thought, please just don't even look at Carly right now.
Pastor,
Yeah,
you mean?
please, Pastor, don't look at Carly right now, because she had I mean, her eyes could have just murdered someone at that point, and I thought, and she was like staring straight ahead, and I thought, oh, please, God,
Yeah,
please,
if looks could kill, that mofo would have been dead.
please don't even like say a word to her, because she's not going to be able to, I knew in my mind she will not be able to control what comes out of her mouth if he says a word to her. And somehow my prayers were answered. And
He didn't.
He did not say a word.
He didn't, but I remember like shaking my leg in that meeting.
Yeah, you were.
Looking straight forward, and there were other like members, because this was like with our, like, it was like the core group of us. Like, it wasn't the entire church, obviously. It was like the core ministers, armor bearers, wives, and husbands. And I remember a couple people like crying. I remember being like, why are you crying? You stop crying. What the F are you crying about? There's nothing to cry about here. Like, he is not the victim. Like, straighten up. Like, I was so...
She was shaking. Like, it wasn't just her leg. I think her whole body... This was one of the few times we were sitting next to each other, and I thought, oh my gosh, she's going to spontaneously combust. Something is going to drastically happen right now.
I think you probably grabbed my hand at one point, like, don't freaking touch my hand.
No, I think I did try to grab her hand and just be like, look, please... You're going to burn this mofo down.
I am like, don't even touch me. Don't even tempt me. I totally forgot about that meeting.
Yeah.
I was thinking that was afterwards, but yeah, that was before. And I remember just feeling like, you're going to call this like right before Christmas because like someone hurt your feelings? Like, you've hurt my entire life. Like, are you kidding me? That was so upsetting to me. And yeah, I remember it was like the veil was beginning to be lifted
Yeah.
a little bit more. Like we were just like, I am so done with you. You don't even deserve the respect that like I would have given him maybe 2 weeks prior, like at
Yeah, it
service
was
or at church.
definitely a situation where he went from being this powerful, like, I'll call the fire of God down on you, to being this pitiful man who
Yeah.
tried to then manipulate your feelings by his feelings instead of using his perceived power, which was
Yeah.
losing its, whatever, its gusto because of situations and, no money coming in and us barely living and living on peanut butter and jelly. And it's like, you can only carry your power for that so long if those things are happening around you. And then it went from him to try and manipulate by his poor, I can't believe I'm going through this. And that was again, that I think that serves as a major transition for our minds too, even for myself, even though I wouldn't allow Carly to know it. Like,
Yeah.
wow,
We still weren't on the same page in that way.
This is like so weird.
Yeah, but I was, even though we weren't on the same page, and I was afraid for the fact that, like, I was feeling so strongly, like, and so angry about the situation, and we had never talked about it. I was kind of like, gosh, Ben doesn't even have any idea how I feel, but I don't even care at this point. It was truly like pulling the curtain away from, like, the Wizard of Oz. We had this idea that this wizard who was our pastor was like this great and powerful Oz, and we find out it's just this like stupid man behind a curtain.
Trying to scare people.
Right, like trying to be something that he's not. And it was like we were finally seeing the little man behind the curtain, who had this big voice before, that meant so much more, so I forgot about that. So that even made Christmas even better, because we were like so fed up. Like, don't even call me.
Yeah.
Like, bye. I'll be in Minnesota.
Yeah.
And don't ask me when I'll be home.
And the crazy thing about even before we went is that I had sent a job inquiry email out the beginning of December before we had that meeting, before we went. I think it was maybe when those other people announced they were leaving, and I just thought about a position, and I don't know. I can't believe I did it.
I wouldn't even say it was a job inquiry. It was it was an email to a coach,
Yeah, total
where you
shot
went to
in the
college
dark.
to be like, hey,
Hey, do you have
Any chance?
you have any jobs available? And I was still working. We were still fully involved. We'd still given everything, and like just crazy I even sent that email. So then,
that was beginning of December.
yeah. And he said, no, sorry. I don't have anything available. Weirdo. Me, not him. But it was so great and gracious, and said, I'd love to work with you sometime.
Well, and that was such a huge step for you to even do that. And I don't remember you even sharing much about that, because, I mean, yeah, why would you?
I couldn't give her
that
hope.
would have.
I couldn't actually give Carly any hope that things would change and then not change.
You're such a jerk.
I couldn't give her hope that my mind was maybe changing if it wasn't going to completely change.
Oh my
Because I
gosh.
knew that
You could have, like,
the snowball
given me,
would be running downhill. But
could have
that's
given
just
me
so
a little bit
wrong.
of life back to me.
Right, and that's, I think, something we've learned over the years is have open dialogue and communication. It doesn't mean that things have to go in a certain direction. It just means that you guys are knowing where you're at. And it's something we've had to relearn
Yeah.
to this day, of how to have those conversations as a married couple without having expectations, or without me feeling like something I say is going to turn something. I know that sounds random craziness. I don't know how to explain it. Do you have a better way of explaining it? I think just having dialogue with each
Yeah,
other.
we had never had dialogue at this point.
I guess
of
that's
like,
not random. That's
hey,
just normal
here's-
relationships.
Here's what I'm thinking. This is what's been on my heart. Here's what I'm processing. Oh, cool. Okay, well, here's what I'm processing. Like, we had never had that.
No.
So, yeah, that would have been normal to be like, hey, Carly, I'm like kind of struggling in my current job at the church.
Sorry, these 20 hours a day, just seeing you once a week for 2 hours.
I don't know if they've been hard on you, but they've been kind of hard on me. So,
but I'm kind of worn out. I don't know.
I've sent an email to my coach from college just to see if he had any openings. Like, I don't think anything's going to come of it, whatever. But like, I just want to let you know, like, no, yes, that is a normal conversation to have, but there was, so much fear in that because we didn't know how to converse at that point. And you were so afraid of like giving me an inch and like me taking a mile. And
which is ridiculous.
It is. Yeah, it is ridiculous. But we just didn't know any better, like you were taught to like, you were the decision maker and I was the submissive one. Like there wasn't any discussing, so there wasn't any processing. So you sent that email before Christmas and I don't remember even knowing about it. But anyway, we went to Minnesota.
But that was part of the processing, I think, from New York too, of saying, how are you really taking care of your family? Thinking, all right, well, I'm not right now. Yeah. And what do I really love? Well, I love coaching. Yeah. I've gifted to do that. I know God's called me to do it. Yeah. Like this is something I'm great at, I think.
But you didn't really, did you feel that strongly about it at that point?
I think there was a part of me that...
You had no self-confidence, so I don't think you felt like this is something I'm good at and what I could be. No, No, you weren't, no offense, but you weren't feeling yourself that well.
No, I sure wasn't.
I don't know why, but... But, so we go to Minnesota, we have the time of our lives and it's just so refreshing and redeeming in so many ways. I
remember going to your grandma's church and I read a scripture there.
On a Christmas Eve service.
Yeah, and it was like the first time we'd been in another church in 5 or 6 years. And it wasn't like this amazing service, but it was people that genuinely loved God. And
it was a candlelit service, and it was like really intimate and just... like, it just felt different and exciting. And they had you read a scripture. I remember that. That was pretty cool.
We'll have this guy read it. He's a pastor.
No, really, you don't want this guy reading it. But again, it was an incredible trip, and it was hard to leave in some ways, but we were able to fly from there to Denver to see your family. Yeah. And so that was like a really nice, just kind of like second leg of the trip in terms of we were able, like your aunt and uncle and cousins from New York were there for Christmas. And so we got to see them. We had just spent time with them like a couple months prior. So it felt really significant that they happened to be in Denver because they don't come every Christmas to Denver, from New York. And so that I remember that feeling like really significant and getting to see them again and getting to like ask us questions in our life and just to see how things were going. And again, it was just we were away from being home, and that was just really nice. But I remember your family being like, Ben just does not look okay. Like every picture we took, because we didn't take a ton of pictures together or family pictures because we were never together. But like every time we did, it was like, you looked like a vampire.
Yeah, I definitely
no color in your skin.
I never saw the sun.
But like you were just, it was almost like you physically looked like what was going on. Yeah. Mentally, spiritually, and physically. Yeah. In your life. And even when we look back at pictures, it's like, oh my gosh. Like when I look at pictures from that Denver trip, and not as much Minnesota, but maybe just Denver, just like, holy cow, you like just don't look like the person that I know you to be today.
Yeah, or that Christmas card your family had from your aunt and uncle's house, that looked like decrepit and like just gross.
Yeah. It was just really, it was so obvious that your lifestyle was like wearing away at you. It was really sad. But I think at the time we didn't notice that. Yeah. It wasn't until years later when we looked back and I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. When you've convinced yourself there's a part that I truly believe in the power of your mind and also the power of God that, I was sleeping 2.5 to 3 hours a night for probably 3 years. Mm-hmm. For sure 2 years, but close to 3 years for 2.5 to 3 hours a night, and like still functioning the way that I thought I could function. And it really is amazing what your body can handle. It's absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
What your body can do, but it was wearing me down.
Yeah, of course.
And mentally wearing me down to the point where you become so you can't, anything you process in your mind, you can't believe that's really true, because you can't really think completely straight in that state of mind when you're not sleeping and you're working and you're worn out, and
like everything's like just a little bit irrational.
Yeah, everything's a little bit like hazy in your mind. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't really afford for it to be irrational because you don't have the time to like take the time to make decisions. But yeah, we get home from Denver. It's after New Year's, and our pastor didn't even go on this cruise. It was too.
Yeah,
he was too devastated. He was too devastated.
I can't smoke cigarettes in the cruise ships, so I can't possibly smoke my pack a day or carton a day.
But yeah, I remember just being like, oh my gosh, what an idiot. Like thinking, like, oh, he couldn't go after all that. Because I think no, it was a gift from his family. I was thinking maybe it was like some of that, like a tithe, for him to go. But I remember it being like a gift from his sisters to like go on the cruise. Didn't end up going because he was obviously too distraught and too heartbroken. And it was kind of like we were back to reality, which just was really brutal.
Yeah,
really,
smacked
really brutal.
in the face with bills.
Yeah,
came back
really
and was like,
brutal.
Here, you can't pay your bills or your company's bills or anything.
Well, and things just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And but at what point did you and your best friend in the church decide to take the Seabest?
It was right when we got back from Christmas, that trip. I think with still the questions and answers from New York, and then Christmas being away, and I got back and I just thought, you know what? And we talked about it. You know what? We've got to provide for our families. I just can't possibly be right in God's eyes to not provide financially for our families with how we're working.
Well, that was the first time you had ever had that thought.
Yeah.
Like, that's such an obvious thought, but you weren't. There were so many other like legalistic spiritual things. Yeah, no,
I was providing for my family by following God. Like,
right,
get with the
That
program.
kept you from like really, like speaking that truth, and moving based off of that. So it feels like such an obvious thing, but that was really the first time in all of these years that you had really finally felt that.
Yeah, I thought like practically, how can I really take care of my family? So I don't know how the idea came up. We just thought, we could substitute teach. In California, you just have to take a test. It's called the Seabest to substitute teach. And at least then, if we didn't have a crazy day at the office, we could go substitute teach. Mm-hmm. And at that time, we had to drive to right by where we used to go to school to take the test. And I had to,
where we went to college.
Yeah, and I stopped by the college to get my transcript in order, because you have to show that to them to take your Seabest, show that you're a college graduate. And I ran into the coach that had emailed about a job, and he was just walking out of his office like crazily. Said, "Hey, do you have a job yet?" Joking around, and him and the other coach that was there kind of looked at me weird and like, we're going on a trip to some convention. Maybe we'll talk later. And it was this craziest thing because I was walking by their office.
Did you even ask for a job, or did you say hey? I don't remember you being like.
I don't remember, but
I think you just said hey. But I remember you feeling like they looked at you weird, like, what in the world are you
what
doing
are you
here?
doing here?
It was like such a like shock.
Yeah. And then I ran into one of the administrators at the school who had been just an amazing resource in our life. Just randomly ran into both those people when we were getting my transcript. Didn't try to do any of that. Mm-hmm. And then after I got transcript, drove down to take the test, and the car broke down that we were driving. And it wasn't even either of our cars.
Well,
it was another person's in church car.
But I think it's crazy to think that like we were living in LA and the CBEST test that you guys were taking just happened to be in the same city where we went to college.
Yeah, which was 45, 50 miles away. Yeah,
which is like just crazy. Like
Yeah.
thinking how God was like setting these
Yeah.
next steps up.
Yeah.
And so you stop by the school, you get your transcripts, you see the head coach, offensive coordinator, and then you see the dean of students who was like very,
Yeah.
very just present in your life
Yeah.
as a student at the school, and was one of the main reasons why you came to school there. And so you guys then go on to go take your test, your car breaks down.
Car breaks down. And we were discussing why this happened, but I believe at this point our phones were shut off because we couldn't pay the bill.
Yeah.
And the car breaks down, and I was like, heck no. I am taking this. I have finally made a decision that I feel like is right. I am taking this test no matter what. And my buddy who's with me is kind of like, I think he just threw the towel. I was like, oh, well, I guess we're not taking the test today. I said, oh, no, that's not happening. And
your car broke down like on the exit of the freeway. So like you were close enough,
it was
right?
no, it was like 2 miles away.
Okay.
And so I considered I'm going to jog all the way there. And at this point, we all know my jogging at this point, right? I might have died of a heart attack. But I thought, you know what? And we only had, I think, 15 minutes. So I thought, okay, can I run 2 miles in 15 minutes? I don't think so, but
Oh my gosh,
I could
no.
try my hardest. So instead of that, I went and knocked on some person's door and asked to use their home phone and called a taxi.
A taxi.
and
a taxi. Uber and Lyft didn't exist. You freaked
And
out
I don't know
taxi.
how we paid. I don't know how we paid for it. But I was like, no, this is not. I'm doing whatever it takes to get there. And we got there in time and took it.
You
And
got there like just in time,
Yeah.
right?
yeah,
Yeah, because I didn't know any of this had happened until you got home because your cell phone was turned off and I had no idea that anything had happened. But yeah, that was so. You guys took your test. You both passed, right?
aced it, obviously.
Obviously, summa cum laude.
It's like, oh, seriously?
So annoying, so annoying. But yeah, so you guys came home.
And then either right before that or right after that, when we all got back from Christmas, is when the best friend who I went with, who was also Carly's best friend, had also
wife.
gone, who had also left for Christmas, came back from their Christmas and said, we're leaving the church.
Yeah, because everyone had family outside the state
Yeah.
except for me. So
Yeah, so I think they went to
away.
Idaho or something
Washington, yeah.
like that, Washington or Idaho, and they came back and my best friend was like, we're gone. We're out of here. And I thought, huh? Wait.
And he had like said all the reasons why, like his wife's mom like is a counselor and had just again it was just like we were all at the point where we were like
Ready to
sort
listen.
of ready
Yeah.
to receive the truth.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I don't know why we weren't ready before or like what about this time made us ready. Like I don't know if I can ever answer that question other than we had gotten to a point where like God was showing us. I don't want to say finally showing us because I think there were things along the way that
for
he was
sure.
trying to show us, but we weren't listening. And, so I don't want to make it all about like God wasn't showing us, but I also don't want to say that we weren't listening fully, because we were crying out for God's guidance like every single day, so why didn't he show us sooner? And that's something like I still really wrestle with today. But anyway, at this point, they had a similar experience to us where they were like out of state. They hadn't been out of state for like a really long time for Christmas, and they were with family and kind of out of touch and like really were asked the tough questions and like really were able to see that like this is an extremely abusive situation.
Yeah.
Like this is not God. Like this is not okay. And
Yeah, she had just laid out what an
His
abuser
mother-in-law.
does.
yeah.
As far as manipulates and then does something horrible and then comes back sorry and gives a gift or something along those lines in order to earn your trust again, and then treats you horribly and then manipulates you again by feeling sorry or making you feel sorry for them. Like, this is what an alcoholic, manipulator, abusive person, this is an abusive relationship. This is how they treat people. And for him, it was like snapped his mind. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm in an abusive relationship.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be treated like this. I'm not going to be a person who doesn't leave an abusive relationship. And from that perspective that we were in it, it's like, I can see how people would stay in a relationship even though it's hurting them and abusing them, because the manipulation is so intense when the person comes back and apologizes and gives you $100 to go to dinner, or makes you feel sorry for them because their life is so hard.
And you feel like it's your fault. Like,
and then someone uses God on top of that, manipulates you in that aspect, and brings that piece of the puzzle in, saying that it's beyond just them, it's God and God's will. Then it becomes even crazier in your understanding of reality.
Well, I think, this situation that we've gone through has like really made me understand what it's like to be what, like, women or men feel in an abusive situation, where they're in an abusive relationship and, they don't feel like they can leave because every time they get the strength to, the abuser, apologizes or makes it feel like it's their fault and you're guilted into staying, or all of those things. Like, I have so much more sympathy, understanding what that feels like, because abusers like just know how to take the power from you, in really just being able to stand up for yourself. But this situation like brings us to the first episode, where it's a Wednesday night and our friends have told us they are not coming back to church, and these are our best friends.
Yeah.
Like, these are
they're not just acquaintances.
Right, these are our
this was
friends
the person I
that
rode to work with every day.
Well, and not just that, we started the Bible study in college together.
Yeah.
Like, we went through that together, went to the church together, went through the business together, and like, these were, I mean, we've done what we know of our life at this point together with this couple. And
when they left, do you remember what I said to you?
God, how could I forget? Well, so I don't remember if this was before or after the Wednesday night couch.
No, it was for sure before.
Okay.
For sure before.
That makes sense, because it probably triggered that
it
night
triggered
for me.
you, and they had decided they were going to leave, and it was probably maybe a few days before that couch episode that we started this with. And I told Carly, I'm not going to leave just because someone else is leaving. I have to hear from God, and I haven't heard from God that it's our time to go.
Yeah.
And I was very adamant about that. I said, look, I'm not going to do it just because I have to hear from God. Like, I'm not just going to leave because that's what everybody's doing.
And I remember feeling like, I can't even explain the amount of hopelessness I felt at that point, because I knew that Ben was a man of God. Like, I didn't question that, but like, at this point, I did not believe that God would tell him and he would listen. I really didn't believe. I did not believe that I could trust, if God were to tell him that he would listen to it, and that he wouldn't try to turn it into like, oh, I don't think this is what God's saying, or whatever. I just, it was so hopeless to hear that from you, because I mean, you were at least acknowledging that, like, it was on your mind that there's a possibility of leaving, or like that, I guess what you said was better than, we're never leaving.
Yeah.
Like, at least you were saying, like, I'm going to leave when God tells us to. But I think I just felt like God's never going to tell us, or if he does, you're never going to hear it. You're never going to listen. Because I didn't trust that, because I felt like that was the best thing for us, but I didn't trust that you would hear or listen to what the best thing was for us, because you hadn't up until this point, and we didn't know what that was like to make a decision together.
Yeah.
So I think that really is what pushed me over the edge to that Wednesday night where I was on the couch in our first episode where I just was like, I don't even know what to do. And I remember praying to God and being like, Lord, if Ben loves me at all, like, and this was such a like manipulative prayer to God, but I remember praying, Lord, if Ben loves me at all, like, he will quit his job at the church. Like, that was how I needed God to show me that, like, Ben loved me still and that he would do something for me. And because it felt so far-fetched that was like, this is what would make me feel loved, but I know there's no way this is going to happen.
Yeah.
But I remember praying, like, kind of just like, okay, God, this is extremely far-fetched, but if Ben really loves me, like, he'll quit his job. And I never told you that, obviously,
No.
that I would have never told you that, but I just so desperately needed, like, God to show up in some way and for me to feel like just known and cared for, I guess. Because it wasn't even about, like, the church and the business were so intertwined at this point, but the business was what was really killing us at this point. That was what was really devastating our lives. There were still people at church that we enjoyed being around, that we loved, that we had shared so much life with, that I could see myself still attending the church but not being with the business.
Yeah.
Like, the business was like, this has got to change, because that's what was keeping you away from the family. That's what was, like, occupying your mind all the time. Like, those were the business was what was, like, really tearing our life apart at this point. It wasn't the church so much anymore. And yes, they were one and the same, but that's why my prayer was, like, please, like, if he loves me, then he'll, like, quit his job, basically. So we, just to kind of recap on that Wednesday night, you came in and I was, like, could not be more dead.
Yeah.
And you had come in expecting me to be, like, praying on a Wednesday night because that was the expectation for me to be praying before we were to leave. And maybe this, I mean, because you weren't at very many Wednesday nights, but this happened to be one that you were at, and it happened to be one that you came home before going to church. So, I mean, we would usually always meet there. So, for whatever reason, you decided to come home first and saw me there, and you were going to pick me up, and I was a shell of a person. And,
Yeah, that's when I heard from God, and we figured out it was time to leave.
Yeah.
So we went to church.
But we still, like, weren't sure. We went to church.
We weren't sure.
That Wednesday night.
We went to church. We talked to the associate pastor, and then we got done with church, and we had a discussion. We were like, all right, this is like, I have to quit the business.
Yeah.
So I called the head pastor at that time, I think the next day, and I said, look, situation with my family, I have to quit the business. We're not leaving church. I have to quit the business. I will work through the end of the month to make sure that the loose ends are tied up.
This is the beginning of January. Yeah.
Yeah, and make sure that everything's taken care of, that I'm in charge of. I'll work through the end of the month. But we'll still be at church. I still love you. You know, all this other
Do you remember how that
junk.
phone conversation went?
I'm sure he was playing the victim at this point. And
Yeah.
I was like, all right, well.
I remember it went fairly well.
Yeah,
in
I think
the
it
sense
went.
that, like, he was totally the victim, but he didn't try to talk you out
he
of it.
was,
I think
he was
knew,
dead
like,
at
things
that
were
point. Yeah.
crumbling around
So,
him.
but you also got to understand, I'm quitting the business that my name's on the lease, my name's on the incorporation papers, my name's on everything. So it's not a simple, oh, I'm quitting, see you later. There's a lot of work that goes into it for me to make sure this thing keeps running so I can pay the rent for the building that my name is on.
Yeah.
And then we went to church that Sunday after we had talked and said we were leaving the business. We went to church that Sunday, and
Well, I mean, I think it's important to, like, so for Ben to say that, okay, like, I'm going to quit the business, like, we're done. Like, that was so huge. And for the first time, like, really felt like he understood me and
Yeah.
like heard me, and that we had made a decision together. And that was huge. It was like truly an answer to my prayer that like felt like such a, I don't know, like outlandish prayer for God to answer. And yeah, so it felt really like empowering to be like, okay, he's done with the business. I mean, how stupid were we to think that like by the end of the month that like everything would be like wrapped up.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
But
Boy,
you know,
what fools we were.
Yeah, we had to put a timeline to it. Yeah.
But yeah, that was a Wednesday night, and we went
And
to
I still
church.
felt a huge responsibility to it, like this huge pull, like, oh, I have to help see this thing through, even though it's like, what do I have to help see through? You know, I gave everything to this, and I never got anything in return. What's my moral responsibility to this? The only moral responsibility I have, I guess, is the fact that I put my name on a lease. That's my bad.
Yeah,
I shouldn't have done it, I guess.
big bad.
So we go to church on Sunday thinking, okay, you know, we're just going to be members of this church. We'll be done with the business, but we'll be members of this church.
And it was just like, it could not be more clear that like there was no way that we could continue going to church
way.
not being a part of the business. Like,
No
there
way.
was just, there was no clearer picture than
No.
like, oh my gosh, we are so done here.
It was the craziest immediate shift.
Yeah.
That, because at least even on that Wednesday when we went, we hadn't discussed leaving yet, and then that Sunday when we go, it was like, I feel like we both walked out of the door and looked at each other and was like, oh no. Like, let's freaking go.
Yeah, like,
Like
this
it
isn't happening.
was so abundantly clear. And
Yeah.
it was one of those situations where, you know, again, I can't say I speak for God or I know everything about God, but it felt like it was one of those situations where it was God saying, look, you started to make a step. Now I'll make it very clear for you.
Yeah.
You finally heard. Now I'm going to make it indisputable
Yeah.
that you feel so uncomfortable in this place, a place that you felt so comfortable in, and that you've
Yeah.
given your life to, and that you've given to at this point for almost 6 years for me, everything that I have, blood, sweat, tears, money,
Everything.
every talent, everything. And we walked out that Sunday and thought, there is no way.
There's no way that I can step foot one more day
No.
in church.
There's no way.
And that was like second week of January, and we were thinking like, oh, well, at least like do business after the end of the month and just kind of see how things
and then
go.
stay at the church. You
Yeah.
know, we thought we'd stay at the church.
No.
And looking back on how did we ever think that? But it was the progression of what, you know, God was doing and showing us what it was. And we left that day, and I called him that Sunday already. Because I had to go back to work that Sunday after church because there was a lot to do. There was a lot, you know, a lot of free websites. But I remember
lot of
calling
work to
him
do
and
without
just
getting paid
and
for
just telling him, I can't do it. I'm sorry. I thought I could. I just can't do it. I can't be at the church anymore. We're gonna have to leave. Can't be at the church anymore. And again, the situation and the conversation with him was very much him crying on the phone, saying, "What did I ever do to deserve this?" And I've only treated you right. Why would you leave? I've loved you so much.
And you were in a place to fully see like what it was that he had done.
Yeah.
Like, because we still at this point like mentally felt like, oh yeah, he had done a lot for us.
Yeah.
We had
And yeah,
like,
this is where my spiritual growth and formation came from.
totally.
And yeah, so
you
was,
couldn't even like accurately answer that question. Like,
No,
what did I do
I-
to deserve this? Where like today you'd be like, well,
Well,
let me tell you.
So that conversation happened, and I remember going through the conversation and being very surprised with myself that I was like, yeah, I'm really sorry. There's nothing. I remember saying, "It's nothing you've done. It's nothing."
Oh my
you've
gosh,
done
you said that?
I don't know. Probably.
Oh my gosh, you're such an idiot. You seriously said that?
It's just God's direction for my family. I'm sorry.
Oh
There's
my
Okay, yeah. Go talk to anybody who's been in a situation like that and see how they respond when they leave a bad situation.
Oh my gosh.
Anybody who's been in like
You're
an
such a
abusive
weenie.
in an abusive situation. Yeah. Okay. Great. Thanks, Carly. You're making me feel great about this. Thanks.
You did it though.
Could someone help me, please? Anyone listening who's been through an abusive situation?
Hey,
and
you did it.
the fact that you actually did it, no matter how you did it, you did it.
No, it's not you. No, it's not you. It's me. AKA, I'm still being abused.
On the way out, do you want to flog me?
Right.
But yeah, that was on a Sunday when I called. And
Oh, man.
And then I'd made a decision to go back to the business for the rest of the month to close things out. And we were in a state of half bliss, half what are we doing, half well, there's only two halves. So half bliss, half what are we doing?
I don't even think it was bliss at that point.
No, but like some kind of relief.
Yeah.
I don't know if bliss is the right word, but it was some kind of relief. And we made that decision to leave, and a week and a half later, just some absolute insanity happens. I mean, the ish hits the fan big time, and we begin to realize some of the things that were really going on. But very thankful it took us making our own, it didn't take us making our own decision, but I believe God allowed us to make our own decision before seeing some of the realities of what were going on, to know that we were hearing from Him and it wasn't just a decision we were making because of what was really happening.
Right. Yeah, because we decided to leave the church at the second week of January, and we put in our 30 days notice to leave Lawndale at the beginning of February. So we were going
at the end of January.
End of January, yeah. So we were going to be out of there by the end of February. We didn't know where we were going.
No.
We had no jobs or anything lined up. We just knew we needed to be out of there. We were maybe, I don't know, going to go move in with my parents.
Yeah, we were anything.
Anything. We just knew we needed to get out of there. And that was, we put in our 30 days notice beginning of February. And that first week in February, some pretty big news came out, and it just kind of changed the direction of everybody.
Yeah, and it put it into a 2-week whirlwind in our life that we'll talk about next week that was dramatic, sad, ecstatic, crazy,
maddening,
every emotion you could humanly think of happened.
Yeah, you won't want to miss our next episode.
Nope.
Because you're going to be pissed. But anyways, we're so thankful to God how it happened for us to leave and how we came to the decision on our own, like Ben had said, because it felt like we had made our own decision versus a decision being made for us for the first time. So next time you'll kind of hear about our newfound freedom of being out of the church, along with some like crazy heartbreak to kind of work through for the next, 10, 15 years.
Oh, hopefully. Oh boy.
Anyways, that's all for now.
And welcome to Final Four. This week, we are doing the top 4 smells, at least that we can think of at this moment. So, top 4 smells. Sorry for the awkward introduction. Carly usually does it. She said it was my turn to do it, and I felt uncomfortable doing it because she's better than I am at it. So,
I think we made the wrong choice.
big time. Do you want to start?
Go ahead.
Okay. First one is rain. And Carly will usually tell me that's wet pavement you smell. But there's something about the smell of rain, and it probably is on the pavement, that just, I love the smell of like more like a rain where the sun is still shining a little bit and it's been hot out, and that rain comes and you just like smell the pavement mixed with the rain and the grass mixed with the rain. There's just I love the smell.
That's a good one.
It's a good smell. I like it.
That's a good one. Mine is my first one is the Pirates of the Caribbean. The smell of the water. Everybody knows what I'm talking about. The smell of the water.
Everybody does.
Everybody who's been to Disneyland knows that smell. It's a similar smell
That's
to
true.
really
That's a
any
good smell.
water on any sort of ride, but Pirates of the Caribbean feels like the most iconic. Yeah, it just is. It's always like cold inside there, so I think of Disneyland like on a hot day. It always seems to be hot at Disneyland, where every time I've been, it's hot. And because Pirates is underground, it's like cold inside, and the smell of the water, it's just very nostalgic. So that's one of my favorite smells.
All right. Number 2 for me would be probably not a surprise, Carly. Love spell.
I thought you were going to say that.
Carly wore that perfume when I met her.
Yeah, not even a perfume. It's a body splash,
Yeah.
which was like so early 2000s. Body splash that I wore in high school and in college. Yeah, it's from Victoria's Secret. I think they still make it. It's like their number one seller.
Yeah, and
You were under the spell.
honestly 100%. And sometimes I'll still smell that. Like someone will walk by me with that smell, and
Yeah.
I'll almost have to sit down. I'm like, I'm gonna lose my mind right now.
It's
it's just like so. It brings me back.
Yeah.
Brings me back 20 years.
Yeah.
It's the craziest. Maybe not 20,
Not
but
20 years.
but 17 years. It
Yeah.
just it immediately puts me in that spot. I'm like, oh my gosh, I just what? It's just so crazy.
Yeah, that's a good one. Mine's also along the same lines, but it's a perfume, Coco Mademoiselle. And the smell is so... I had a sample of it when we went to New York for the first time, and I wore it every day there. So it will forever remind me of New York and that trip, and it's just so obviously memorable for all of the reasons you guys have listened to. But yeah, there's something about smells that are just so powerful, kind of like songs.
Yeah.
When you hear them and you smell them, it's just like it can bring you back to a place in time. And that is what that perfume is for me. And I love it to this day because of that reason. And doesn't it remind you of that too? I feel like that when I wear it, you're like,
Yeah.
oh, New York.
Yeah.
It's a good one. Such a good one.
My third one is fresh cut grass.
Oh, that's one of mine.
What?
That's one of mine.
Get out of town.
Don't act like you didn't know that.
I love that smell. I love the smell of fresh cut. It just
I
reminds
thought you
me
didn't
of
like it because of,
No, it does. It reminds me of two things. First of all, it reminds me of working with my dad who mowed lawns all the time, and would make me come and help mow lawns with the rest of the children in the family. But it does. It just brings me back to summer. Like
Yeah,
it
it's like the best.
immediately
They're just the best, yeah.
is summer feeling, and I'm just like, oh. Like you almost take a deep breath and think, oh, we're in summer. Like, I love fresh cut grass.
Yeah,
I
it's such a good
really,
one.
really do.
Such a good one. My next one is I love the smell of diesel, but diesel from like the boat that you've been on in the lake. That
see
smell
that.
is
Yeah,
so
for sure.
good because it reminds me of camping in the summer with my entire family, being at Bass Lake, or like the smell of like the sea-doos.
Yeah, that's a good
It's
smell.
like the exhaust from the boat and the sea-doos from like water skiing and being on the water. Just is so nostalgic for me. Gosh, I love that smell. It just, it just reminds me. And
Yeah.
I'll smell that like occasionally. Trying to think of like where I've smelt that hasn't been at a lake, where it just reminds me of that. Maybe even just as like a truck or something.
Lawnmower?
Yeah, maybe a lawnmower or something like that like triggers that same smell of like diesel, but it's different than just like car diesel or truck diesel. It's something with like the water that is like really nostalgic. That's one of my favorite smells. It's like the grass. It's like the summertime smell of like camping for us.
Yeah. All right, my final one is kind of mixed between two, and it's both a little weird. First one would be like pre-workout.
The smell of pre-workout?
Yeah, just and I don't even know what it is.
Like the
but
smell of your own sweat before you're working out?
No, the pre-workout drink you take.
I'm kidding.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Carly. There's just something that's like, I'm ready to go with that smell. And the second one that kind of goes along with that's a little weird is like the smell of a locker room. And usually that's a horrible smell, but there's just something so... Like, I love the idea of that. I don't know. I mean, it's not like a great smell, but it's a smell that's just so familiar being in athletics my whole life. The smell of like a locker room.
Is it like a rubber smell?
Yeah, kind
like
of.
From cleats and sweat.
Cleats and sweat. And now that turf is around, the smell of turf and just that whole athletic smell.
Vibe.
Yeah, it just
sounds awful.
It is awful now that I think of it. It's disgusting, but there's just good feelings
good feelings
it.
that are attached with it. Kind of like one of your favorite feelings is when you stand in the shower after a hard football game and all the hot water like burns all your scrapes and stuff.
Yeah,
That's like
I'll never have that feeling
feelings.
again. I'll never have one of my favorite feelings again.
You will when Truman's old enough to like wrestle you and beat you up.
No, he'll never do that. I will always be stronger than him. But yeah, Carly's mentioning that. One of my favorite feelings in the whole world is after a football game in a hot shower and standing in that shower and just having all my cuts and bruises and pains just be searing hot from the water, and it stings because it's bloody, and it just it's like you gave your all to something. I love the feeling of giving everything I have to something. Obviously, welcome to the podcast.
Wow.
I'm going to give my all to everything.
This is sounding very familiar.
But it totally is. What a great feeling. And if you've never felt that, shame on you for never giving your all to something.
Oh my gosh. Just don't give it to a cult. If you learn anything from this, just don't give it to a cult. Good grief. Charlie Brown. My final one is obviously the next best smell of the summer, which is the Orange County Fair. Duh. Because there's so many amazing smells that go on, just mostly with all of the food. Obviously, you've got the bacon wrap station. You've got the deep fried station. You've got like the Mediterranean kebabs that you go by. Then you got like the charbroiled burgers. Can we talk about how good a charbroiled burger smells?
So good.
There's something different about a charbroiled burger than just other burgers.
Yeah.
They're so good. So good. The corn, oh my gosh, you can't forget the corn. The smell of the corn, that's probably the best smell at the fair, is the smell of the corn.
Yeah, so you love the corn man also.
I love the
smell
corn
of
man.
the corn man.
Yeah, actually it was a corn lady growing up. And yeah, we may have to share that like on some of our favorite childhood memories on another Final Four. But yes, I grew up in the city of Santa Ana. If you're not familiar, you don't want to be. But we grew up with the corn lady coming down our street. And yeah, so the smell of corn is just so good at the fair. I mean, what is better than sitting in the photo booth taking pictures, which are my favorite thing to do at the
Totally
fair, the black and white photo booth, with the smell of corn, with like deep fried pickles waiting for you when you get out.
Yeah. I
so
personally
good.
love the smell of like cow manure.
Okay, this is just turning really weird. First pre-workout, then locker room. Then
There's something about it that reminds me of growing up and visiting my cousins, and it just, I love that smell. And like when I drive through Central California and I can smell that, there's something, I don't know. It's a horrible smell, but it smells great. It brings good memories for me.
Yeah, it brings good memories. I also love the smell of laundry through a laundry chute.
Oh, Carly loves the smell of laundry.
Yeah, love it. Through a laundry chute, it smells different than just like being by the washer. And it's actually the dryer chute. It's whatever, like, that hot air that's coming out onto the side of the house or outside of the garage, whatever. I love that smell so much. So good. I have a thing about smells. I think I like the laundry smell because it smells clean, and we know I like to be clean.
Obviously.
Also, like onions and garlic and being sauteed in a pan.
Ugh, I hate that smell.
Are you kidding me? With melted butter? You like the smell of a locker room, but you don't like the smell of grilled onions?
It just smells like bad breath to me.
Garlic and onions in butter?
Smells like bad breath to me. How amazing is that? Smells like bad breath. Yes, it's exactly what it is. It's bad breath. Might as well call it Shrek.
Okay. Well, I didn't expect that. I didn't expect that.
Also, new car, new shoe smell.
Yeah, new car smells pretty great.
Yeah, it is. Or new shoes. It's kind of the same smell.
Yeah, Ben has a new
It's
car
like
right
fresh
now, so
rubber.
You're feeling that new smell.
New lease, let's be honest, guys. We didn't buy a new car.
That is a great smell, though. It just like makes you feel clean. Kind of like when you had your house cleaned and you come home and it just smells like you've had your house cleaned. It's like such a good feeling, and you didn't have to do it. That's probably the best part about it, is it smells like your house is clean and you didn't have to do it. Nothing better.
Yeah.
But the best smell of all time is a newborn baby. Like a baby, like a couple days old.
Oh,
not
yes.
Like straight from the
you
womb.
meant like straight.
No.
Poop baby. I don't know. I don't know how that. No, yeah. Now that you yes.
With like the smell of like freshly clean baby clothes on them.
Yeah, that is.
They just have like this
a great
smell. Like newborns just have this smell. I wish you could just bottle it up and just keep it forever.
Johnson & Johnson tried.
Yeah, when they were sued. But they just, oh man, new little babies just have the best smell if they're clean. Some babies aren't clean.
Yeah, talk about the worst smell. Like the baby whose like hair smells like puke. It's horrible. Like you hold the baby, you're like, oh jeez, does anybody wash this thing?
Our kids never had hair, so that wasn't a problem. I was also a freak about making sure our kids were clean and smelled
for sure true.
Smelled good all the time. And that that Mustela baby wash is like the best. Oh my gosh, it's just so good. Just a new little baby is just the best. A good smelling baby.
Yeah, we'll have another baby just to smell it.
Yes. Oh, but yeah, that'll end it with the best smell on earth. A new baby.
All right.
All right. Bye. Thanks for joining us on Bizography. Please subscribe or leave a comment. And if you have questions or want to open up a discussion, you can find us on Instagram or Facebook at Bizography. See you next time.